When you wake up in the morning, it's great to hear. The No Agenda Show is here. But there is nothing to see here. Look back and forth like you're covering up for a crack.
So let me just continue on down. I'll show you a little bit more of this. And automatically coming up with a rating of a new document. That's cool.
Yeah, so given that we're out of time, be sure and follow up with Dave, you know, get his website.
So in that room, a presentation by Dave Roscoe. Or do you go by David?
Either one is fine.
Okay, and what you were talking about in there, although it really didn't initially look that interesting visually, it was fascinating in terms of what you were talking about.
Thank you.
I think of it as almost reinventing the internet, but what your real mission is to try and preserve communications if the government sort of pulls the plug on the internet. Tell me about the main concepts that you're trying to get across.
Well, the main concepts are, I'm concerned that the internet is in danger. There's a lot of things happening with it. It's being filtered. There's talk about licensing people, allowing them to upload or not allowing them, basically making uploading a privilege rather than a right, the way it is now, you know, like driver's licensing. And I'm just concerned that these days, especially with all the terrorism and things, that it's just going to get worse and worse. And I decided that somebody should work on a system to you know, to use in the event that the internet does become severely restricted, and we need an alternative.
You had, I mean, just one of the concepts I noticed that was just fascinating. Again, well, I think you may be onto something more than even what you were originally setting out. You would have this concept of like verifying the quality and truth of websites by enabling people to click back in 3 different ways: back good, back bad, back neutral. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, one of the problems we have with websites these days, such as with forums, where people will write a message and then other people can comment on them and discuss ideas. There are a lot of what we call trolls out there, people who just sit out on the internet and just make problems and make it difficult for a website to be useful for exchanging ideas. And
I love my trolls, by the way, but go ahead.
Well, it's a serious information pollution problem, and I just thought that if we had some way of some software that we could build into our browsers or our forum or email readers to make it easier to get around all that stuff, it would be really helpful. And so what I came up with was the idea of modifications to your readers, your browsers, your news group readers, your email readers, such that the buttons that we use to go to, you know, to go back to a previous message or a previous web page or the next message, instead of just having those just be single buttons, we make them 3-part. And depending on what you thought of the message you just read, the document you just read, you will click on one of those 3 parts. If you thought the document was really good and truthful and valuable, you could click on the good part of the button. If you thought it was okay, you could click on the, you know, okay, neutral part of the button. If you thought the document was a lie or disinformation or just not useful at all, you could click on the bad part of the button. And the system would automatically record your response in a little database, which could be used later in automatically rating other documents from the same person.
One question I have, again, getting back to the whole danger of the internet plug and pull thing. So much of this is like, yeah, someone's either going to set up a mesh network or they're not, or something's going to survive or something's not. There's a lot of it's out of my control, out of my viewers' control. But what's just something the average person can do to kind of get ready for that moment when maybe they can't get on the internet normally, if it happens?
Well, that's a difficult question.
Well, I have an answer, actually, of my own, thanks to your speech, and that was, my thought was that possibly, I mean, the thing you mentioned that I thought was useful was if you have a person's IP address, you don't need their website or for the internet necessarily to be functioning in order to get to their website. So maybe if you've got a website, the thing to do is make sure all your viewers know your direct address so they can get to it without having to type the normal address. Am I on track there?
Yeah, that is a solution for a particular type of interference that could happen. on the internet, although it was designed to be very resilient and redundant, such that if part of it gets broken, packets can be rerouted around those broken areas. But there are certain parts of the internet which are not redundant and are very vulnerable to takedowns or attacks. And one of them is the domain name server system, which you were just talking about. And that's the system which translates names, the names you see, such as, you know, google.com or abc.com or whatever, into the actual numeric IP addresses. It's sort of the electronic internet equivalent of the telephone book. Okay.
So you want your own IP address, basically, and you want to spew that to your viewers if you've got a channel.
Yeah. I mean, normally when we click on a link, the link is actually a name, the name of the web page that you want to go to. But you can get to that same location numerically, just like, you know, people can dial telephone numbers and just dial the number that they remember, or they can look it up in the telephone book or call directory assistance and have the operator dial it. Okay, you can do the same thing with the internet. If the domain name server system goes down, which does that name to number translation, you could get around that if the person whose website you want to go to has given you his numerical address.
Okay. Now, do you have a website where people can get more information from you about what you're doing?
Yes, I do. It's called mediamatrix.org.
Now, okay, that's the most important piece of information we got all day. I'll see you and some of your readers on mediamatrix.org.
Well, before you go, if they're interested in this particular topic, when they get to that page, there's a table of contents there. If you do a search, Control F search on most browsers, and search for Truth Distribution Network, that will take you to the link to this particular subject.
Okay, good. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
This edition of the Ridley Report is brought to you by supporters of
NoAgendaShow.com.